Hot wax drips onto a clerk's fingers as he presses a seal into a loan contract, and the smell of melted resin mixes with sweat and wet wool. Outside the basilica, a crowd is already shouting because the due date just moved again. If this paper is wrong, a shipment gets held at the river stairs, wages don't clear, and the wrong men get dragged to the magistrate in the confusion. This is the Forum Romanum in Rome. Early morning, 52 BCE, a week that no one can agree how to name. A wall-mounted board of painted letters, the fasti, the public calendar, was scraped and rewritten before dawn. Fresh lime dust still clings to the grooves where dies fasti and dies nefasti decide whether courts can sit or must shut. Vendors glance at it like sailors checking a tide mark. A moneylender points at the new line and demands extra interest. The month is longer now. A butcher swears the festival day was stolen from him. No slaughter allowed. No sales. The system is the Roman civic calendar. Months, market cycles, court days, religious bans, run by the College of Pontiffs, but used by everyone who moves grain, pays soldiers, or collects rent. When the calendar slides, contracts slide with it. Interest accrues or vanishes, taxes arrive early or late, and trials can be postponed until witnesses disappear. It's a tool of administration as real as a weighscale or a lock on a warehouse. It's the same logic today. Control the schedule, control the city. Lucius, a junior scribe, wants only one thing: not to be blamed for a date he didn't choose, because blame travels downward fast in Rome. He watches the ink darken in the grooves of his tablet and thinks about his sister's rent in the Subura. If the landlord claims the month gained days, he will claim more money too. By noon, a runner from the Pontifex's office arrives with a fresh notice, another correction, sealed in red wax. Lucius feels his stomach tighten. The correction isn't about the heavens at all, it's about power. Tomorrow, inspectors will come to check whose contracts changed and who profited first. In the Pontifex's office on the Velia, lamp smoke curls along the ceiling beams and settles on stacks of wooden tablets. A bronze stylus scratches, then pauses, because one line can shut the courts for a day or open them, and that decision can free a debtor or ruin him. The calendar here is not a neutral chart. It is a schedule for work, trade, and punishment, copied into records that merchants will cite like law. Rome's old calendar is supposed to follow the moon. Months begin when the pontiffs announce the new crescent from the Capitoline, and the year is fixed, with an extra month, Mercedonius, inserted when the priests decide the seasons are drifting. On paper, it sounds like astronomy. In practice, it is manual control. A small group of men, meeting behind doors, can make a month shorter or longer by decree, and nobody can appeal it in court, because the court itself depends on their mark. That control reaches everywhere. The Nundini, the 8-day market cycle, is marked by letters A through H. Farmers plan the day they haul vegetables into the city. Tax collectors plan the day they station themselves at gates and bridges. Builders plan the day they can hire labor without a festival halting the worksite. When the pontiffs adjust the month, those letters shift. A market that should fall on E lands on F, and a merchant who rented a stall for one day finds he has to pay for two. The infrastructure is simple but fragile. Whitened boards hung in the forum, copies scratched into wax for offices, and runners sent to magistrates and, when someone remembers, to the ports and road stations outside the city. Any delay means different districts follow different dates. That's how brawls start. One man swears it's a work day, another swears it's sacred. Gaius, who copies the fasti for public posting, has a practical fear. If he writes the wrong mark, a magistrate will blame him, not the priest who ordered it. He also has a practical temptation. A senator's agent has been waiting in the corridor with a small bag that clinks softly when moved. Tonight the pontiffs meet to decide whether to insert days. Gaius can smell the oil on the seals they will press into the decision, and he knows the city will wake to a different month. At dawn, he will be the one carrying the board to the forum. Coins slap into a counting tray in the back room of a banker's shop, and the metal sound is sharper than the voices in the street. A contract is being renegotiated in real time because a magistrate's term, supposedly ending next month, might be stretched by a calendar tweak. If that happens, a court case stays frozen and a rival keeps his property. This is Rome's financial lane near the Arch of Janus, late afternoon, 52 BCE, when politics and paperwork share the same doorway. The calendar's flex is a political tool. A consul who fears prosecution wants his year in office to last longer. A candidate who lacks votes wants the election delayed until a bribe fund is ready. Tax farmers who bought the right to collect provincial revenues want the collection window extended because every extra day is profit. They don't need to amend a statute. They need to move a line on the fasti. Those lines carry legal force. On dies fasti, a praetor can hear cases and issue judgments. On dies nefasti, the courts are closed, contracts can't be enforced, and a creditor has to wait while interest keeps ticking in private ledgers. Holidays do the same. If a festival suddenly covers 3 days instead of 1, labor stops on public works, shipments back up at the river docks, and inspectors can't lawfully compel testimony. A delay is not just inconvenience. It changes who can be punished and when. The method of control is ugly but efficient. A dinner is arranged. A priest is reminded of a cousin who needs a building contract. A purse is placed on a couch. The next morning a notice appears. An intercalary month will be added or not, depending on who paid. The city treats it like weather, but for a few families it is engineered weather. An aedile named Marcus walks the markets with a small escort, smelling fish guts and vinegar as he checks measures and seals on weights. His inner conflict is blunt: keep the stalls calm, or face a riot that ends his career. He hears merchants arguing over which days are legal to trade, and he sees how fast the argument turns into fists when someone shouts, "They stole our week." Marcus orders the fasti board guarded overnight, not because he trusts it, but because he fears someone will smash it and claim ignorance. He sends a messenger to the pontiffs demanding a written clarification. Tomorrow, the Senate will call for explanations, and Marcus will have to stand in public and pretend this is still about the moon. A reed pen squeaks across papyrus in the praetor's tribunal, and a fine grit of sand, thrown to dry the ink, sticks to damp fingertips. Outside, a line of petitioners stretches into the sun, but the clerk keeps repeating the same phrase: "Court is not sitting today." If the docket slips again, debts pile up, violent collections replace legal ones, and the street gangs get hired as enforcers. This is the Basilica Aemilia, midday, 51 BC. The calendar controls whether the state is open for business. The praetor's staff watches the fasti as if it were a gate key. F means lawful days, and means forbidden. When a pontifical notice adds a festival, the tribunal must close, even if the city is boiling. That gives powerful men a workaround: stall justice without overturning it. Marcus the aedile tries a first enforcement response. He orders official copies of the fasti sent to every major market and to the river warehouses, each sealed to prevent tampering. He assigns lictors to stand by the public board and arrest anyone who scrapes off letters at night. The penalties are modest: fines, a beating, a few days in a cell, but the message is meant to be clear: the schedule is state property. A contractor named Sextus, responsible for paving repairs near the Circus Flaminius, feels the pressure from both sides. He wants more days, not fewer, because every no-work festival delays his payment and risks a penalty clause. But he also knows a longer month lets him bill more labor and more stone. His motive is practical and uncomfortable. He wants stability so he can plan, but he also wants ambiguity so he can profit. Reports come in that different districts are following different dates. A bathhouse owner says inspectors arrived early, closed him for sanitation faults, and demanded bribes to reopen. A grain dealer says his tax receipt is late, and the collectors don't care. By evening, the praetor drafts a summons to the pontiffs, asking who authorized the latest change. The paper is still wet when a messenger runs it uphill. Tomorrow, someone has to answer on record. At the river warehouses, the air is cool and sour with spilled grain and rat urine, and a dock foreman's hands come away dusty as he pries open a sealed door. A barge crew is waiting, sunburned and angry, because unloading was barred for the festival. But the festival date changed overnight. If the grain sits, it heats, molds, and disappears into rot, or into theft. This is the Portus Tiberinus, early September, 50 BCE, at the edge of the city's food supply. Rome's calendar is tied to supply because it dictates when labor is allowed and when officials can compel work. On major holy days, some tasks stop by custom or law. Courts close, certain trades pause. Animals can't be slaughtered in public. That rhythm matters when you run a warehouse system with thousands of tons of wheat moving in and out, measured, taxed, and rationed. The urban prefect and the aediles depend on predictable market days to prevent panic pricing. But drift and manipulation are now colliding with the season. Harvest timing in Italy does not move just because priests add days. If September arrives late on the board, the real weather is still changing. River levels fall. Barges scrape shallows. A storm can pin a convoy for days. When the calendar lies about the season, the city plans the wrong week for the wrong job. A merchant named Publius considers hoarding. His motive is private and ugly. If the public can't tell what day it is, they can't tell what a fair price is, either. He feels the coarse twine of a warehouse seal and imagines cutting it, then blames confusion when sacks go missing. Marcus orders surprise inspections. Weights checked, seals counted, fines issued on the spot. He knows every inspection can trigger violence in the alleys behind the docks. One warehouse manager mutters that he will pay any bribe, just not in front of witnesses. That night a rumor spreads that another extra month is coming. Publius listens to the shouting in the tavern and hears a new word in it: sabotage. In the morning, Marcus will inspect the fasti board itself, looking for fresh tool marks. Wood cracks like a split shield as someone rips the calendar board from its hooks, and the wet plaster behind it flakes into white dust across the paving stones. A torch sputters in the wind and leaves a greasy smoke trail as the board is kicked into the gutter. If the public cannot see the official fasti, every creditor, gang leader, and tax collector gets to announce his own true day, and order becomes negotiation by force. This is the north edge of the Forum, before dawn, 50 BCE. Marcus arrives with lictors and finds the damage still warm to the touch. The iron nails are bent outward, pulled, not snapped, meaning someone had time and tools. He can smell cheap pitch on the torch head. Nearby, a shopkeeper is sweeping up, eyes down, refusing to name names. In Rome, people know which questions get answered with a knife later. The sabotage has a purpose. When dates are uncertain, enforcement weakens. A man can claim he didn't appear in court because it was a forbidden day. A contractor can claim the worksite was closed by religious law. A political faction can call in a legal assembly and insist it was lawful because today is F. The calendar board is a piece of infrastructure, public information, maintained like a street sign, and just as vulnerable. A young gang lieutenant named Naso watches from a portico, fingering the rough leather strap of a hidden club. His motive is not ideology, it's wages. He was paid to create confusion, and he fears the paymaster will deny the deal if he leaves witnesses. He also fears Marcus's men, who can beat him in the open and call it maintaining order. Marcus orders the remnants collected and stored as evidence. He sends a runner to the pontifical office demanding a sealed replacement, and he posts extra guards. It costs money, overtime pay, bribes to keep guards awake, compensation for injured bystanders, and the city treasury is already strained. By midday, a fresh board is hung, letters painted in haste. It will not last. Tonight, Marcus will sit with the praetor and plan arrests, because the next attack will target not wood, but the clerks who write it. In the Curia, the air is stale with sweat trapped under wool and linen, and sandals scuff on the marble as senators crowd toward the speaker's platform. A clerk's wax tablet is pressed so hard the edge bites his palm while he tries to capture every shouted phrase. If the Senate cannot agree on the date of an election or a levy, laws stall, armies go unpaid, and rivals accuse each other of illegal power grabs. This is a Senate session in Rome, winter 50 BCE, as civil conflict looms. The argument sounds technical. How many days are owed to the year, whether the pontiffs acted properly? But everyone in the room understands the leverage. Extending a magistrate's term by adjusting the calendar can keep allies in office and enemies out. Declaring a day sacred can block a vote. Declaring it lawful can force one. The calendar is a legal switchboard, and the men who touch it can reroute the city. A senator aligned with one faction demands a fixed schedule for the safety of the republic. Another senator, quietly aligned with the opposite side, insists the priests must remain independent. Behind both speeches is the same calculation: who benefits from uncertainty and who benefits from predictability. The pontiffs send a representative, a smooth-voiced man with clean hands, who reads a sealed statement and refuses questions. The statement cites tradition and the gods. The Senate hears a different message: we decide. Outside, the crowd gathers, listening for the word that will tell them whether markets open tomorrow. A veteran centurion on leave, hired as extra security, feels the tension in his shoulders as he grips his staff. His motive is simple. He wants the Senate to settle this without street fighting, because he has seen what civil violence does to pay chests and food lines. The session ends without a vote. As senators file out, messengers sprint to private houses with new instructions. Tonight, the pontiffs will meet again, this time with armed escorts at the door, and the next calendar change will be made under threat. Roasted fish steams on a silver platter, and garum bites the back of the throat as a priest wipes his fingers on a linen cloth. The dining room is warm, lamps hissing, while outside the streets are cold and loud with men arguing about lost days. If the priests sell time, the city's schedule becomes private property, and every public process, tax, trial, election, can be priced. This is a townhouse on the Palatine, the night before the pontiffs announced the year's correction, 49 BCE. A pontifex named Servius listens as a senator's agent describes the problem. An ally needs more days before a prosecution can begin, and a rival needs fewer days before an election. The agent sets down a small chest, the lid creaks, and the smell of cedar rises from the wood. Inside are coins, but also promissory notes, credit, favors, marriages. The calendar is being traded in the same currency as stone, grain, and votes. Servius's inner conflict is not spiritual. His family's debts are real. His cousin wants a military post. His own position depends on patrons who expect returns. He tells himself that an extra month is necessary, that the seasons have drifted. But he knows the drift could be corrected in a dozen different ways, and he is choosing the one that helps his friends and hurts his enemies. The mechanics are handled by clerks. They prepare a formal announcement, stamp it with wax, and instruct runners where to post it. The forum, the main markets, the temple steps where crowds gather. They also draft lists of religious observances that will expand or compress to fit the new month, because even holidays can be stretched like leather. A side note in the margin reminds magistrates of penalties for ignoring the proclamation: fines, annulled proceedings, accusations of impiety. When the agent leaves, Servius hears the faint ring of the chest's latch in the hallway. He stares at the fasti draft, ink still wet, and wonders how many street fights his decision will buy. At first light, he will stand on the Capitoline and announce the change, and the city will either accept it or test it with violence. Mud sucks at boot soles on the Via Flaminia, and cold rain runs under a soldier's collar as a supply cart lurches into a rut. The quartermaster's ledger is wrapped in oiled cloth, but the ink still smears where wet fingers keep reopening it. If the marching schedule is wrong, a convoy reaches a river crossing after the bridge is cut, or reaches a town after its granaries are empty, and men start stealing to eat. This is northern Italy, early spring 49 BCE, when the official month name no longer matches the weather on the ground. By now the Roman year has slipped so far that official months no longer match the season. Farmers plant by sky and soil, not by proclamation, but state logistics rely on dates: when taxes are due, when levies assemble, when roads are expected to be passable. A winter campaign planned on a November that arrives late becomes a campaign in real winter. Horses die, wagon wheels split in frost. Repairs take time, and money the army doesn't have. A centurion named Decimus watches men shiver around a fire that won't catch because the wood is soaked. His motive is harshly practical: keep the unit together, keep desertions down, keep his promotion alive. He doesn't care about priestly tradition. He cares that pay is delayed because the paymaster says the month hasn't ended, while the men swear they've worked it already. In towns along the route, local officials post their own calendars, some corrected, some not. That means a requisition order that is legal in one district is illegal in the next. One mayor demands a sealed date before he releases grain. Another releases it, and then sues for compensation when the courts reopen. The system is tearing at its seams, not from ideology, but from mismatched paperwork. A courier finally rides south with a blunt report. The Republic's timekeeping is failing, and it is failing the army first. The message is addressed to Julius Caesar, newly returned from Gaul, who is about to make decisions that depend on dates, deadlines, and legitimacy. In a few days, he will read it, and he will decide whether to take the calendar the way he is taking the state. A bronze coin rolls across a wooden table and stops against a stack of pay tallies, leaving a faint green smear where it rubs old corrosion. The room smells of ink, leather, and damp wool cloaks hung to dry. If the payroll date is disputed, soldiers will believe they are being cheated, and an army that suspects theft can turn into a mob with standards. This is a temporary headquarters outside Rome, 47 BCE, after Caesar's return, when the Republic is being rebuilt under pressure. Caesar has taken the title Pontifex Maximus, which means the calendar is now inside his command structure. He needs a schedule that works for war, levy dates, supply contracts, court sessions, tax deadlines, and the timing of public games that buy loyalty. The old system, lunar months, discretionary intercalations, can be manipulated by rivals, but it also creates chaos he cannot afford. A city is easier to control when everyone agrees what day it is, like a utility under stress. An administrator named Balbus watches Caesar's finger trace a line of figures. Balbus's motive is practical. He wants a stable bureaucracy that survives whoever wins, and he wants credit for making it function. He also fears the backlash. Romans tolerate many forms of coercion, but they resent being told their festivals have moved or that debts are due on a different ides. The proposal on the table is blunt. Stop pretending the moon runs Rome. Adopt a solar year of 365 days, with an extra day inserted on a fixed rule to handle the remaining fraction. Caesar has already sought technical support from Alexandria, where astronomers track the sun with instruments and records, not priestly memory. The obstacle is implementation. To reset the seasons, the current year must be stretched massively. Scribes will have to rewrite every schedule, rents, tax farming contracts, court calendars, and holiday lists. In the next meeting, Caesar will summon the astronomer Sosigenes, and the first draft of a new year will be read aloud. Fresh ink glistens on a long scroll as a scribe blows across it to dry the surface, and the grit of drying sand crunches between his fingers. Behind him, an assistant keeps relighting a smoking lamp, because the room is packed and the air is thin. If this draft is wrong, the correction will fail, and Rome will spend another generation arguing about dates instead of enforcing them. This is Caesar's administrative office in Rome, 46 BCE, weeks before the reform is announced. Sosigenes lays out the mechanics without ceremony. The solar year is about 365 days plus a fraction. The solution is to fix the year at 365 days and add one extra day every 4 years. Months will be given set lengths, some 30, some 31, February shorter, with the leap day inserted by repeating a date in late February. It's not elegant, it's workable. Workable is what a city needs. But first, the year has to be dragged back into alignment with the seasons. The pontiff's old intercalations have been neglected and abused, and the drift is measurable. So Caesar orders an extraordinary measure. Extend the current year by adding extra months and days until the calendar catches up with the sun. In total, the year will run 445 days. Later Romans will call it the Year of Confusion, but for clerks, it is simply overtime. A senior clerk named Lucius, older now, promoted from wax tablets to papyrus, feels the weight of the change. His motive is mixed, pride that he is inside the machinery, and fear that one copying error will become a legal disaster. He can already picture merchants accusing the office of theft when rent is due twice in a month that isn't a month. The draft also rewires holidays. Some sacred days keep their old positions relative to month names, even if the season shifts. Others are moved to preserve seasonal meaning. That means negotiations with priestly colleges and with politicians who use games to buy support. The final document is sealed. Tomorrow it will be posted in the forum in letters large enough for a crowd to read. and Rome will learn it has just been assigned 90 extra days. Incense hangs thick in the air at a temple doorway, and the stone steps are slick underfoot from a day of constant traffic. Priests are trying to keep a line moving while citizens demand to know whether tomorrow is a festival or a workday, and whether their oath in court will count. If the city misreads the new schedule, lawsuits collapse, tax payments get duplicated, and riots flare at the markets. This is Rome, late 46 BCE, during the extended correction year. The reform is law now, but law still needs distribution. Official fasti are recopied and shipped to magistrates, to tax offices, to army paymasters, to port authorities. Each copy has to match the master list, down to the letters that mark court days. A single missing stroke can close the courts for a day or open them illegally, and opponents are watching for mistakes they can exploit. Contractors exploit first. A builder claims his crew must be paid for extra days because the year is longer. A landlord claims rent is due again because another month has been inserted. A tax collector argues that an extended year means an extended levy, and he has the guards to enforce it. Complaints flood Marcus's successors in the aedile's office, written on cheap papyrus that smells of damp storage. A temple accountant named Flavia feels her own pressure. Her motive is survival. Offerings fund repairs, and repairs keep roofs from collapsing onto worshippers. If donors believe the priests are complicit in Caesar's calendar, donations fall. But if she resists the posted dates, she risks being accused of undermining the reform and undermining Caesar. Enforcement becomes procedural. Notices are nailed up at markets. Lictors carry copies. Inspectors check that private calendars posted by guilds match the official board. Fines are issued for false posting. It is the first time many Romans feel the state policing time the way it polices weights and measures. By week's end, the crowd has stopped arguing about the theory and started arguing about the bills. A petition is drafted demanding relief from duplicated payments. Tomorrow, Caesar's office will decide whether to compromise or make an example. Shields knock together with a hollow, wooden drumbeat as a line of soldiers pushes through a market street, and dust from trampled grain hangs in the sunlight. Someone has overturned a scale, spilled wheat crunches under sandals like grit. If the crowd breaks the cordon, warehouses will be looted, and the city's food reserves will evaporate in an afternoon. This is the Forum Boreum, early 45 BCE, as the first full months of the new calendar take effect. The spark is a date. A group of debtors insists the payment deadline was moved unfairly by the reform. Creditors insist the opposite, that Caesar has stolen days and now demands money sooner. Both sides carry copies of the fasti, some genuine, some altered. In the noise, truth is just another document. The administration responds like it would to any threat to supply, with force and paperwork together. An officer reads a proclamation, voice cracking, declaring the assembly unlawful. Clerks stand behind the soldiers, ready to record names for later prosecution. The courts are open today by the new rules, and Caesar intends to use them. A centurion named Aulus feels a tightness in his jaw as he watches a teenager reach for a sack of grain. His motive is conflict and discipline. He wants to avoid killing civilians, but he also knows that hesitation can get his men stabbed and will mark him as weak. He has seen mutinies start with rumors of stolen pay. He will not let one start over stolen days. Arrests follow. A few leaders are dragged out. Some are fined. A few are exiled. Caesar's message is not subtle. The calendar is not up for debate in the street. The next step is administrative. Standardize the copies, punish counterfeit boards, and force every magistrate to use the same list. That evening, Lucius sits over a lamp, correcting yet another set of fasti copies, his fingertips black with ink. Tomorrow, inspectors will begin door-to-door checks of guild postings, and the first leap day rule will be tested in practice. A mason's chisel rings against stone, and tiny chips sting the hands of the man holding the guideline steady. The inscription he is cutting is not a victory title. It is a calendar, month names and day marks, meant for a provincial forum where merchants and magistrates need the same schedule. If the leap rule is applied wrong, the drift returns quietly, and the reform becomes another source of dispute. This is an Italian town under Augustus, around 9 BCE, when the Julian system is being corrected. After Caesar's death, the calendar survives because it is useful, but usefulness does not prevent error. The leap day is supposed to come every 4th year. For a stretch, officials insert it too often, reading the rule incorrectly or following local custom. The result is predictable. Dates start sliding again, and different communities argue over which year is the leap year. For an empire expanding across climates and time zones, that is an administrative hazard. An imperial clerk named Tiberius, low level, not the future emperor, feels a familiar anxiety. His motive is career safety. He wants his records to match Rome's master list, so a visiting inspector doesn't accuse him of negligence or fraud. He keeps 2 sets of tablets, one marked by local practice, one marked by the latest directive from the capital, and he can't afford to guess wrong when tax day arrives. Augustus issues a correction. Leap days are suspended for a number of years to bring the count back into alignment, and a clearer instruction is circulated. The fix is bureaucratic. New fasti are carved, old ones corrected, and officials are ordered to stop improvising. Enforcement relies on inspections and on the quiet threat of removal from office. The stonecutter wipes dust from the grooves and checks the spacing with a string line. He knows the letters he cuts will outlast the officials who argued over them. Tomorrow, a courier will arrive with another packet of instructions from Rome, and the town will have to decide which calendar to display. Sun-warmed limestone holds the day's heat, and a courthouse porter's hand leaves a dusty print as he pushes open the door for the morning docket. On the wall nearby, the fasti is now carved, not painted, letters cut deep enough to catch shadow. If the schedule is stable, the courts can run, taxes can be forecast, and grain contracts can be priced without guessing. If it slips, the old business of bribing and delaying returns. This is a provincial forum in the early empire, decades after Caesar, when the calendar has become routine infrastructure. The measurable change is administrative. Magistrates can set court sessions months ahead. Tax collectors can plan collection windows across multiple towns. Contractors can bid on public works with set milestones and penalty clauses. Army paymasters can issue rations on predictable cycles. The calendar becomes a shared reference that lets an empire coordinate roads, ports, and warehouses without renegotiating the date in every district. That does not make it innocent. Whoever controls the official list still controls the rhythm. Which days are holidays? Which days allow lawsuits? Which days permit assemblies? Emperors add games and anniversaries to buy loyalty and mark power. They don't need to bend the year anymore. They can crowd it with sanctioned pauses. Lucius's grandson, now a records clerk himself, runs a fingertip along the carved letters and thinks about his household accounts. His motive is plain. He wants predictability so he can pay rent, keep his children fed, and avoid the attention of collectors. He also knows, from family stories, that predictability can be granted or withdrawn. A calendar can be a promise or a leash. A messenger arrives with a new notice. An imperial anniversary will be added as a public holiday next month. Courts closed, markets restricted. The porter sighs, resets the docket board, and reaches for fresh nails. Tomorrow, an inspector will check compliance, and everyone will learn again who gets to decide what time is for.